Snyder,
Yeah.
rocking out the lyrics. So another first. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here again on a beautiful day, and I thank you for what you bring to the event. I'm looking around and just wonderful collection of folks, and each of you has a variety of thoughts and opinions and beliefs about anger, and you have different orientations to anger. Some of you are maybe very much at home with it, and others of you might really feel guilty or badly about anger. So there's a variety of thoughts and beliefs, and I want to honor all of those. And nicely, we don't have to agree, or to come to some consensus on every nuance about anger, or even have the same orientation to anger. Some time ago, Barbara asked me to share some things and some themes around anger, which I'm really glad to do. Even though it's difficult to kind of hone in on some things, because it's such a big topic. It's no small thing. So I'm going to do my best to angle in on some things. And Barbara did ask me to talk a little bit about if there's any usefulness or purpose of anger, and how we might deal with excessive or disproportionate anger in our lives, and then maybe what we do in the face of the world today, with things globally, or things in our country, or things in our government or White House. There's a lot going on, and a lot to think about, and there's a lot more reactions in the world today, and perhaps a lot more anger in the world. Maybe a lot of everything. A lot of people being more unsettled than ever before, more insecure than ever before. So there's a lot happening. One of the things that occurs to me, I was saying to Sandy that every time I kind of think about this and go through my notes or some of the moves in my head, I think about something else. And so there are a lot of things to think about with anger and nuances. But one of the things, I want to start at something very basic, and Barbara hit on it, is simply acknowledging anger, or perhaps accepting it, perhaps even unhappily accepting it, or because some people are not happy to be angry, but it is a part of the human experience. And there are some clinicians or even some modalities that say all anger is inappropriate and can be eliminated. And I don't share in that kind of that framework. I don't even think it's possible. It would be like me saying, well, I'm going to try to stamp out happiness in my life, or states of ecstasy, or try to get rid of all of my anxiety or my sadness or loneliness or contentment. So I can't get rid of anger. At least I don't think we can. I sometimes have people come into my office and I'm engaging them clinically, and they say things like, I'd like to get rid of my anxiety, or I'd like to get rid of my anger. And somehow, inevitably, I say something like, well, even if that were possible, it wouldn't be good. I mean, imagine a life with no anxiety. We'd all be dead. Anxiety and even fear has some purpose. Now, disproportionate or excessive anxiety can get in the way, or disproportionate or excessive anger can get in the way. It can cause problems. It can get in the way of our functioning in this world and in relating to each other. But I like to say that we've got to acknowledge it as a part of our human repertoire of feelings and states and realities. And remember that just because I say, well, I accept it as a part of my mode of being, doesn't mean that I always need to be happy about it or enthused. I've never had anyone say, Bob, I'd like to be more angry in my life. I'd like to be the champion of anger. I'd like that written on my gravestone when I'm gone. Usually we're trying to reduce at least excessive anger in our lives, and so it's a real issue for a lot of folks. And I would say that we can work on reducing and managing and processing our anger rather than trying to eliminate it. I just don't think it's possible. The the nuance that comes to mind right now is that, and this is a whole other conversation, but I want to invite your own reflections as you take this whole morning in, is to think about, how am I with my anger? Do I accept it? Do I feel guilty about it? Do I suppress it or repress it or try to shove it underneath under the carpet? Am I processing it in healthy ways or not? Do I have the right people around who can help me process and deal with my anger and live with my anger? People who can receive it safely and help me with it. Over the years, in the broader social science field, in the field of mental health, I'm aware of myself and also with others that there's some usefulness of and purpose for anger in our lives and even in the world. You might have heard the phrase, righteous anger, or even prophetic anger, or just human anger, and that it exposes things that might be out of balance, or bad social policy, or people, or events, or behaviors by others, or the world not unfolding in the ways that we think that it should. So we can be appropriately angry, and it casts light on conflict that we maybe need to get at, either within ourselves or with others, or people with people with us. It can serve the purpose of promoting transformation, needed transformation in this world. And if I can identify conflicts, or if I can recognize my either irritation or feeling annoyed or feeling bothered or feeling vexed or frustrated, angry or enraged, it's a full spectrum of stuff. It's not just rage. It can be chagrin or anything else. If I can identify those things, I might be able to deal with some things or deal with conflict. And that is transformative. I can get at inequities in this world. I can deal with things myself. I can work toward greater maturity and responsibility in this world, with and through and then beyond my anger. So it can prompt change. It can prompt change within ourselves and relationships in this world, and lead to greater depth. And I hope enjoyment as well in this world, because I'm not looking to be more angry in this world. I'm looking to be appropriately angry and to hopefully reduce some unnecessary anger in my life. There are some people and practitioners who say things like, I am angry, but I am not my anger. Or I feel anger, but I don't feel just anger. Or I feel angry, or I have anger, but I'm not to be defined alone by my anger. And I like words and phrases like that because it holds side by side this sense that, I have my main sense of myself, and then I have my behaviors or my feelings. And especially if we are judgmental, if there are those who are judgmental about their thoughts or their feelings, I can look at the anger or perhaps inappropriate responses, angry responses, rather than throwing my entire self under the bus. I can separate out my personhood or my character from some of the things that I don't do so well. And by the way, and Barbara triggered this in me when listening to her, that as we go along in life, we can also say something that sounds pretty basic, that anger is really, it's one of many feelings. It's a very strong feeling and often an unpleasant feeling, but it need not be so prominent in our lives. I'd like to hold side by side the sense that feelings are incredibly important. They mark our humanity. They're a part of our experience, and yet they're just feelings nonetheless. And they come and go. And so it's incredibly important, but they're not everything, including anger. The other thing that Barbara also touched upon that I'm aware of is that anger need not have a recipient or an object. I can simply feel irritation about things. I can feel angry about a loss in my life. I can be angry about all kinds of things. I've met a lot of people in life, and maybe you've met some folks who say things like, I'm really angry at God right now, or what they believe is the holy or the divine or the real. And so God takes a lot of, God is the object of a lot of person's anger, but it need not have an object. It's okay just to be angry and to not have to blame. I can just simply feel anger in this world, and that's okay. Okay, let me look here, because the other thing that I'm modifying as we go, and Sandy, you're going to probably have to modify as we go too. Well, let me say a couple things about. So there's a little bit of usefulness and purpose of anger, and there are there's actually a lot of ways that we can deal with excessive or disproportionate amounts of anger in our lives. One thing that I don't want to forget is some of my favorite commercials are those Snickers commercials. Bob, you need a Snickers. The guy's having a bad day, and transforms back into himself after a Snickers bar. Not promoting Snickers necessarily, but I am promoting how important it is to take care of ourselves when we're hungry, tired, or if we're already irritated about something else. We're not our best selves. So sometimes, we can reduce the amount of anger or impact how we process the world by taking care of ourselves, getting enough sleep, having enough good fuel in our bodies. That's kind of the low-hanging but not unimportant fruit right there. So I see that a lot, especially with husbands and wives, and he didn't eat all day, and I came home and he was a real grouch, or she didn't have anything to eat and had a couple of glasses of wine, and she was just off the wall. All kinds of things happen when we don't take care of ourselves, or we're more highly irritable. You've heard of there's something called there's the rational mode, or the rationally mode of behavioral therapy, REBT. You don't have to remember that, but they've got some really good ways to get at anger and to reduce anger, and people within that mode talk about expectations and assumptions, and that mode really invites us to delve into, what are my beliefs about the world? What are my expectations of myself and of others and of the world around me? Because if I don't have some of my expectations, if they're not reasonable or fair or, appropriate, I'm going to probably be sadly disappointed or sadly, and unnecessarily frustrated. For instance, if I expect to never get a flat tire, or if I expect no one ever to let me down, or things to go wrong in the world, or even if I expect to not ever let myself down, I'm going to be embattled